Welcome back to Who Says Women Can Be Engineers, episode 4, where I interview special guest Kellyanne.
Okay, welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with our fourth guest. So can you please introduce yourself and tell me a bit about your current role?
Sure thing, and thank you for having me.
Of course.
My name is Kellyanne Lochan. I work obviously at Woodside Energy. Current role is a bit of a tricky one. I'm actually in transition right now.
I've heard.
I was previously leading our business in Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
We recently divested those assets.
Yep.
I've just moved back to Houston. I call Houston home. And I'll be transitioning into a new role as the VP of our Beaumont New Ammonia facility, which starts up later this year. I'm very excited about that.
That is cool. So can you explain a bit about your engineering discipline and your inspiration to pursue it?
Very good question. And I've got quite a bit of an interesting story on that one. So by profession, I'm an electrical and computer engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I studied engineering predominantly because my dad was an engineer and I wanted to be just like him. So that's my story. Why did I choose electrical and computer engineering? Again, a dad story.
Yeah.
So,
sounds like me.
Yes, very, very similar. So I said, Dad, I want to be an engineer. I want to be like you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you suggest? Because at that time, I'm just leaving high school, getting into university, trying to figure your life out.
Yeah.
You look towards your role models. My dad is was and still is one of my biggest role models.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, electrical and computer sounds like the right one. It's probably the hardest one. You don't want to do anything that's easy in life, so you do the hardest one. And literally, that's how I got into engineering. Now, I was probably one of 3 females in a class of 100 men at the time. So that was interesting on its own because I was in an all-girls high school before starting university. So interesting dilemma / challenge / opportunity there. But look, I loved doing engineering. I don't do that on a daily basis anymore, but I do think it has provided such a great foundation for who I am as a person, as a professional, and the skills I'm trying to instill in my now 5-year-old, almost 5-year-old.
Almost. Okay, so can you tell me a bit about your academic journey through high school and university? What classes did you enjoy? And
Yep. So I went to school. If my accent doesn't give me away, I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. I went to an all-girls high school, and at around the age of 13, 14, you start defining your career path based on the subjects that you would have been doing. So we literally had a choice. You kind of go into business or you go into sciences. And again, predominantly influenced by my father, who was in engineering and in the technical and energy field for his entire career. Chose the engineering path, and I loved physics. I loved math. I loved all of the sciences. I had already known from a very young age I did not want to go into medicine. And so I stuck to primarily, math, physics, and those types of subjects, and chemistry. And so, and again, talking about making the choice and the leap from high school into university at such a young age, predominantly influenced by family members and people 100%. That you've seen have been doing it and being successful at it. And then moved into university. Now, the system in Trinidad and Tobago is different from the US system. It's more of an English-based system. And so I would have written English-based exams at the time at the sort of 17, 18 years old, and then moved into university there. So my degree was a 4-year program. And right after that, I started working in the downstream chemical industry in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, that's cool.
And after I started working, I decided, hey, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to continue education. And at that point in time, I wasn't sure, what technical field I wanted to get into. So I did an MBA while working. So
that's cool.
So that was my sort of stint into education.
Yeah. So kind of going a bit more of that. How has your career progressed since joining the workforce? Like, what kind of jobs have you gotten to be where you are now?
Yeah. So I probably had a bit of an interesting journey. So, as an engineer starting out, I feel like, you kind of need to understand how you fit into the value chain.
Okay.
So, and this is maybe a little bit of advice and a little bit of a look back in terms of how I kind of, got to where I am today. So I started purely in the, engineering field.
Yep.
And I never knew or thought about moving out of that
Uh-huh.
until I got the opportunity to learn more about how does this business, how
With
is
your
this business
MBA?
run. So a little bit on the education
Yep.
side. So that, when you do a degree, it's almost like it's giving you a new way to learn and think.
Yeah.
It doesn't always tell you this is how you're going to do your job.
Yep.
So I felt like that was helpful to me in understanding broader economic context
Yep.
and business context. But until I had the opportunity to step out of an engineering role,
Yep.
so I did engineering for the first probably 8 to 10 years.
Yep.
I was in technical roles. And then I had the opportunity to step into a business planning role.
Yep.
So I was working directly with the person that was running the business in Trinidad and
Yep.
Tobago at the time. So then I got the opportunity to now work with other functions, understand how the business is run, something outside of the technical space.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important when you're thinking about your goals and where you want to go. So prior to that, I want to be an engineer. I want to be
Just
the best
purely,
engineer. I want to be
yeah.
the engineering manager. And then when you step outside of that and you see other opportunities, now you can get an idea of where
What you wanna
ultimately
go, yeah.
it opens multiple
That makes
pathways,
sense, yeah.
and that's what happened for me.
Yep.
So up until the time I had the opportunity to work in this business planning role, which is a fantastic space to be, because you're working for the boss. That's great. So you're getting exposure, direct leadership interaction and exposure, and you're working across a number of different teams. So now you can say, I kind of like this or I don't like this, and it kind of opens new pathways, as I mentioned. So that was that was sort of an eye-opening experience. So if I had to give advice to somebody in a technical field, how do you expand your horizons? Well, one, you kind of need to understand how do you fit in and the work that you're doing, and how does that fit into the broader business context, but also try to get exposure opportunities that could expand your pathways. And I would always recommend probably 1 or 2 degrees of separation from what you're doing. If you kind of step into something that's a little bit far out, that's a little bit further away from what you're currently doing, then it's difficult to understand how do you get from here to there.
Where you fit in, Okay, that makes sense, Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice, especially like once you broadened that, you got a better idea of what you want to do, and I feel like that's led you now to where you are, more in like leadership and like I think that's cool. That's what I want to do when I go into engineering.
Yes.
So the next question is, what would a typical day in your job look like?
My job today?
Yeah.
Man.
So
an interesting question.
That's a hard question.
Yeah, but look, I would say I would call myself maybe a business or an operational leader.
Okay.
And so that was my previous job, and I'm kind of going to be doing the same thing or similar in this one in a different location with different people.
Yeah.
I think, one of the things, and the most important thing, is firstly understanding your people.
Yeah.
And understanding what your team looks like, what are their roles and responsibilities, what are they good at, and where do they need support.
Yep.
One of the things that I've learned stepping into increasing leadership roles is that you have to kind of, you got to start letting go of things.
Okay.
You can't be doing everything. You need to enable people to deliver.
Yep.
So a lot of the day will be spent on identifying where people need support.
Yep.
And that could be through your one-on-one routines, through your governance routines. So when I say governance routines, it's meetings that we've got where you're pulling together business performance information, and you're having an open discussion on things like your HSE performance, health, safety, and environment performance, your production performance, your cost performance. And so a lot of the day is spent on evaluating where your business performances, and then making decisions and interventions in terms of, where can you add support, identifying risks and opportunities, and helping the team through that. So that's, I would say, predominantly that's what
making sure
what
the
a
team
role should
functions,
be focused on. And then as a business leader, it's super important to spend time with the actual folks that are doing the work. Yeah. So your site-based team. So you've got to, sometimes you can sit in the office, but the majority of your workforce is either offshore or at site. You need to ensure that you're making time to connect with them, understand the challenges that they're facing, the risks, of course, that they're facing, and the opportunities, and how you can help support them through that.
I think that like they're the people who are doing the hands-on work. So that is It makes a lot of sense.
And then, I talked a lot about the internal, but as you grow in your leadership, then your stakeholders might change. You've got internal stakeholders, but you might have external stakeholders. So suppliers and vendors, government agencies, others like
people that help the process.
People that help the process, exactly. And then, of course, in the internal context, you've got your leaders, so my leaders, which would be, of course, Daniel, who's my boss, and then Meg, who's his boss, and then working through what understanding what they need
to make
know.
it run.
Understanding what they need to know, and ensuring that you're able to facilitate that direct communication and updates with them.
Yeah, that's great. So kind of going off, like you've talked a bit about your projects and how they all run, do you have any that have been particularly memorable?
They've all been memorable. Let me start with I've never really done a job that I didn't like or end up liking, and I think it's important to find the things about the role that you're in that speak to you and make it all worthwhile. Make it all worthwhile. I recently just concluded the divestment of the Trinidad and Tobago assets with Woodside. It was great to enter that team and recognize the opportunities that existed from building the safety culture, improving the production performance and reliability. So I'm super proud of the work that the teams have been able to do over the last couple of years under my leadership there.
It's rewarding,
It's so rewarding to know that you were able to influence, improve outcomes where you're not just looking at, stats on a board, but you're seeing people improve their performance, and you're able to recognize and reward that. And of course, divestments are always challenging, but I do feel proud of the work that Woodside was able to do to support the people and moving on to a new operator that can elongate the life of the asset and provide future employment opportunities for them for a longer period.
That's great. So kind of going on to like one of the main questions, have you ever had to face any challenges or biases due to being a woman in the engineering field? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I fortunately, I would say I've not experienced a lot of that.
Yep. Okay.
Unfortunately, I have.
Yeah.
In some instances,
spectrum,
And look, I would say it's been a very long time since I've had that kind of experience, because I think not only is the company that I work for so advanced in terms of inclusion and diversity and respectful behaviors, but the industry has come a very long way from, even when I started, and I haven't been in the industry for that long, it's been 18 years, but, from stories that I've heard from other people, we've come a long way. I would say that one of the reasons why I left a previous employer was one, a little bit of a safety culture, but also I had some experiences as a female. So, in some of these workplaces, and obviously not naming names, and that's not the intent here. The intent is really to share where we were and where we're evolving to. I once had to lead a large team of contractors. And in the country and in the workplace, all of the contractors were predominantly men. And I bring my full self to work. I bring who I am. So I like makeup. I wear makeup to work. I've got long hair. I stick by the company policies, but I express who I am, and that's the intent. And one day was essentially sort of harassed by a couple of people on site because you're the one female, and that's not the environment that I want to be in. And I, as a female, I won't encourage others to be in that space. And I didn't have a voice. I was very young at the time, so I didn't have a voice to necessarily provide feedback. I would just, kind of shy away from it. So one of the avenues is to leave that environment. And that's kind of what I did. I would love to see where people can actually help to change that environment. So that's why I aim to always, try to lead in an inclusion and diversity
advocate for it.
Advocacy role within any space that I'm in, so that I can help to evolve and change the environment versus pushing people out of it.
100%. I feel like obviously that would be such a tough position to be in. But yeah, I hope like as we progress that those spaces can be, and obviously everyone who I've interviewed has said that Woodside's done a really good job at inclusion, but hopefully we can get that everywhere. But I mean,
it's a working in progress. Wouldn't
100%.
it be great to get to the day when you don't have to even talk about it anymore, because it's
not even a problem, you don't even have to bring it up, but obviously we do. And so what do you think are some characteristics that are important for women to have in engineering and a leadership role like yours?
Certainly. So let me talk a little bit about some of the things that I think are important, and that kind of leads into characteristics. Perfect. So firstly, building your technical capability and experience. Mm-hmm. So ensuring that you're building that capability for yourself, so that you can springboard into different things in the future. Mm-hmm. But you also want to ensure that you're adding value to the business. So making sure that you can connect not only with your leaders, but the people around you and the people that are doing the work at site. So that's one thing that I think is important that we sometimes lose sight of. Who are we actually supporting? And a lot of the work that we do as engineers are in support of better safety outcomes, and that has an impact on site-based teams. So characteristic that I talk about is building communication skills where you're not just up, but you're
everyone
360, everyone around you. So you're making sure that you're adding value all around, and you're not just looking for leadership recognitions. Steadfastness. So it doesn't always go smoothly, and like I said, the world is evolving. But sometimes you're usually the only woman in the room and the only woman at site. That still happens, unfortunately. We're working towards improving gender balance across Woodside, and many companies are doing the same. But I would say, stick true to what your beliefs are and what your goals are, and don't be wavered by the external environment and the fact that you're the only person there. So, that often means looking for mentors or sponsors or advocates or people that understand the context that you're in to provide support. But it means, sometimes having to push through. Having to push through things.
Stay resilient.
Staying resilient.
That's great.
So I would say steadfastness, resilience is probably one of the characteristics that I would recommend. Most people have it, but you got to dig deep.
You do,
You got to dig deep,
and it can be hard. So
it could be hard.
It's good,
and don't ever lose sight of who you are.
Stay authentic.
Stay authentic, because the environment can change you, but we want to encourage females to bring themselves to work. It should be about you bringing yourself and in having the environment around you evolve versus the other way.
Rather than you evolving to it. I think that's so important. Every person who I've interviewed has said authentic, not changing yourself, not trying to fill that man role. Like, you're a female, like, do it yourself, which I think, great message.
And there are so many females that I could think of they've done that. So it's not like you've got to fit yourself into a mold.
And like, they've been successful doing so. Like,
exactly.
And that's what you want to see. It's great.
Exactly.
So as a kind of zoom out and a final question, what advice would you give to young women considering entering the engineering field?
Just do it and don't say no. I mean, look, it often comes across as a sort of scary space, a black box. Hey, I don't know what's going on there. I've heard too many horror stories. The world is evolving, and there are organizations like the one that I work for who really believe in the underpinning values and the support for females in the industry. I would say just do it, and don't say no to opportunities. Many times, females will come in, and I've seen firsthand where a woman would think she's not good enough to put her hand up for something. That is absolutely not the case. I encourage you to, you kind of say, don't say no to drugs, but don't say no.
Don't say no.
Say no to drugs, but don't say no to the opportunities that will be that could be afforded for you in the energy environment, for example. But not only in the energy space. Female engineers are everywhere, and build your pathways, because starting as an engineer doesn't mean you've got to end as an engineer. It's just stepping stone for many other things.
Well, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to keep updated for any new episodes.